This is the CNC Geekcast, the podcast where two guys with speech impediments talk about movies. I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
On today's episode, we'll be talking about the newest Best Picture winner, The Shape of Water. We're going to be talking about the characters, the plot, what we thought about the film, and much more. So stay tuned!
Another film's out on Redbox now, because that's how Joseph saw it. But some of y'all may not have seen it yet. If you haven't seen it yet, stop listening to this episode, because we're going to spoil the crap out of it.
And once you have seen it, come back to our episode and listen to our thoughts on it, because we have lots of them. Paul, what are your thoughts?
I thought it was an absolutely beautiful movie, well in all aspects. First off, the color choices in the film. The whole film had that blue and green...
teal color palette.
It had the color palette, and it was... Thank you, that was the word I was looking for, is color palette.
Well, what can I say, Paul? I'm just so helpful.
Sometimes. But anyway, I like that. First off, it's obviously the color of water.
What?
And then second off, it created that otherworldly effect. Mm-hmm. Like, think about the use of green in movies. It always... identify the supernatural, the otherworldly, like The Mask,
Maleficent,
and Sleeping Beauty. Yeah. And then we actually talked about it a bit in Vertigo. If you want to hear us talk about it even more and talk about color theory.
Also, the Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, the ghosts, they're also green.
Good call.
And we can do this for hours.
But it worked so well in this film because it created that otherworldly feel.
Yes.
This movie really just felt like an otherworldly fairy tale to me.
Well, the beginning of the film, of course, set the tone, because at the beginning of the film, the credits was basically an apartment. Well, the main character was sleeping, but it was all underwater. And she was floating in water, which I thought was a beautiful opening in the film.
It was an absolutely beautiful opening, and it was really cool. I love it when the films take the time with the opening credits as well. Just because a lot of times they'll just kind of splash the name of the film up there, and it's like, well...
Yeah, well, the film also did a good job of having an opening dialogue, explaining things, but in a narrative way, a storytelling way. Because I recently watched the movie Tomb Raider, and the thing that bothers me is it had an opening sequence where he had a monologue, which was a prologue, which was showing pictures of the bad guy character that they were hunting for. And I had a problem with that because I hate when films do that because it seems lazy, it seems just cheap, and it's like tacked on. This is probably what it was in that sequence.
It is lazy and cheap. They probably showed the film... to test screeners. The audience was like, well, maybe throw a prologue in and things like that.
Yeah, and they did that because they had the lack of time. And this film did a very good job of opening up it and did it in a way that was complementing the story and set the tone very well. And the music was also beautiful.
Well, yeah, it did. I even loved the musical numbers in the film because lately I've been watching a lot of like old dance videos. Mm-hmm. And I loved that sequence in the middle when Eliza's dancing with a creature.
Yeah.
That was just a beautiful scene. In a lot of films, it could have felt out of place, but it actually fit in perfectly.
It did, and it also was the first time that we heard her talk in the film.
Yeah.
When I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is really important in the film because you hear her voice.
Yeah.
And because the reason why it fits so well is because throughout the entire film, you could see she's watching the old 1950s, 60s musicals with Ben Cosby and with Shirley Temple. And you could see, she is really good at mimicking the dance by just watching. Because there's one scene where she just got done watching it, and she was walking down the hallway to her job, and she just did a couple of dance sequences, like the tap moves. And you could just tell they did work because those sequences set it up in the film. And you can see that she has a love for it. And not only that, but she introduced herself to the monster using music. Well, that's one of the elements she used. And so you took those two and combined them together, and it did work.
All that to say, I really enjoyed the film. I thought it deserved its Best Picture win. Frankly, I kind of just love seeing a fantasy film win Best Picture.
Me too. I think it's about time that fantasy films get recognized. Like The Return of the King was, like I talked about this, the first... and I went down the list of all the Best Picture winners, and The Return of the King was the first clear, straight-up fantasy movie that won Best Picture. Everything else was...
And now we have two.
Now we have two, yeah. So, hopefully... maybe a Marvel movie would be nominated and win. Who knows? Probably not.
I kind of hope not, because that would mean that was a really bad year for films.
What?
I'm being serious.
Wait, if a Marvel film is good enough, like Logan...
Well, I don't mean if it's...
If it's good
I don't want to get off on this. I don't want to get off on this thing. But all that to ask, what did you think of the film?
Well, like I said, I thought the film was beautifully shot. I am not taking anything away from the craftsmanship. I don't like it when people sit there and say that film is terrible because they don't like it. Because in the end, I didn't like the film, to be honest. It didn't do anything for me, but I want to make it clear that I don't like it when people say, I don't like the film, I hate it, therefore the film is bad. No. I don't subscribe to that because you could tell that the people behind the scenes, the director, the cinematographer, the lighting, the art design, the set design, everybody did a fantastic job of bringing this movie together. And you can see the craftsmanship and how good everybody did their job. And I don't want to take anything away from the hard work and effort. And you can see it. So this film is, like you said, it's a beautifully shot film.
It just didn't resonate with you.
It just didn't resonate with me. The main characters didn't do anything for me. I didn't feel that they were. I didn't see that they were outsiders. I was told they were outsiders, but I didn't really feel like I didn't see that as much. There were some sequences here and there that showed us that, but it was more inferred. There was one scene that was more inferred than anything else, but there was just one scene in the diner where the guy at the pie stand was just chased two black people out, and then the main guy who was gay tried to hit on that guy, but he was chased away, and that scene existed. The gay guy got fired from his job, and they didn't want him back, and we are to assume that was because he was gay, but it wasn't really clear that it was because of that. Because he was a great artist.
Well, I think some of it was too, because part of this also kind of represented the march of time and the way things were versus the way they're becoming. Because, for example, like the thing with the gay guy, his job had kind of changed part of the way they did things, and he was a relic of the previous age. And that's kind of what I liked about the villain in this film as well. The villain was so clearly representative of the way things were, and trying to keep everything fitting in that mold versus the way things.
But at the same time, the villain did want more out of life, and that's what his arc. Because for the minute you saw the guy, and by the way, Michael Shannon did a fantastic job in this too. I mean, he's a great actor, and he should hopefully get recognized somewhere down the road with an Oscar nomination. But when it comes to this film, you can notice the first scene because there's a woman who's the mute and another woman who they were all cleaning a facility where the monster was or the creature was kept. He went into the men's restroom, they were cleaning, and he didn't mind they were there, so he started going to the bathroom. And before he went, he washed his hands. Then he went to the bathroom. Then afterwards, he reached into his pocket, picked up some candy, and put it in his mouth, and then said to the women, a sign of a man. There's two types of men who wash their hands. And who before they go, and men who do it after is like, and those who are after is a stronger man, basically.
Well, those who do it before are the stronger man because he didn't do it after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it shows that he didn't mind the germs being on the candy, because it's really important for films like this because writers and filmmakers use those scenes and those lines, set up the overall idea in one line. And if the film sets the pieces in place, you can see why the pieces are being set the way that they are. So his arc was, I care about my persona, I care about my image, and I'm going to do what I can to keep that image.
But at the same time, that scene was still weird to me, though, just because I guess I'm not a strong man.
Well, it is.
I know, I was making a joke.
I know you make, yeah, I guess you are. But at the same time, I'm like, it's all personal thing. Like, you want to do it before, after, whatever. But that's the mute point. It does just go to show his character. And at one point in the scene, for some reason, he really hates the villain, and I get that. He hates change. He hates something different and something, original. And
he hates the creature.
He hates the creature, which represents, something different and outside of his box. I get that. And he lost his, and in the scene, in that he loses his fingers in a conflict he had with the monster. And one of the main characters, the mute woman, found their fingers, and they put their fingers back on. But what happened throughout the film is really important when it comes to that aspect.
Well, first off, I really enjoyed Michael Shannon characters because, as you talked about, he is a man so obsessed with his image, and he's so obsessed with that throughout the film. You can really just see he's empty inside, because that's all he cares about is his image. Because he talks about hating to be in the city because of the way it looks. He talks about everything about that, everything, the way he treats his wife, the way he treats his children.
Yeah.
When he gets that new car, he's talking with the salesman. That's all he cares about is the image.
Yeah.
And That's really set up well in that first scene. The first scene he's introduced as a character, it's set up perfectly.
Yeah.
Now, I also like kind of, you were just talking about the thing with the fingers. I also kind of like the symbolism with that throughout the film.
Yeah.
Because when his fingers get bit off, they're bit off cleanly, so they can be reattached. And if they're treated well, they can be healed and be normal fingers again. Mm. But throughout the film, they get infected, and by the end, they're just kind of a mangled black
mess.
Yeah,
and it just goes to show, when the fingers are cut off, it shows imperfection with the body.
Yeah.
Which symbolizes the imperfection of the character. Mm. Well, if you put them back on, and they can heal, it shows a potential for redemption.
Yep.
But as you were saying, it just kept on the fingers kept on being corrupted, with the symbolism of the soul. And the soul is getting corrupted.
And I also thought it was interesting too, because as we see in the movie, the monster can also heal.
Yeah.
So with the fingers thing, I always thought I thought it was interesting, like what is versus what could be.
Yeah. I mean, it gets to a point where he could have easily been healed.
Yeah, exactly.
Easily been healed by the monster if he wasn't so hateful to the monster.
Yeah, had he let the monster, thinking about possible scenarios, had he let the monster go, the monster may have healed him or something like that. It was just what is versus what could be.
Yeah, if he took the time to listen, because there was a scientist that was advocating for a proper study of the monster, because at this point in time you had the Russians and the United States was involved in the
Cold War,
the Cold War and the space race.
Yep.
And they wanted to find a way to have an astronaut survive in space, so they said, well, here's a monster or a creature who can breathe underwater and can sustain itself in two different atmospheres. It can breathe above water and underwater. So if we can learn that breathing technology, we can apply that to our astronauts in space. Well, the scientist, who was a Russian spy, was trying to get the monster back to the Russians, but the Russians wanted to kill the monster too, and this scientist was an advocate to keep the monster alive for proper study. We're not going to learn that much from it by just killing it, and it's also a beautiful creature that we should let live, because it's something you don't see every single day.
Well, like the endangered species, if we come up on an endangered species, like on the first one we've ever seen in entire history, we're not going to want to kill it. We're going to want to protect it, and that's what the scientist was advocating for.
Yeah. So. And it just I understand what the film was getting at. I get that. And going back to Michael Shannon's character, we talked about his wife. I find it interesting how, for some reason, he was so he cared about his persona. He got the car he wanted. He got the American dream, quote unquote, and he got that. Had his two children and his perfect wife who wanted to have sex with him. But there's one point where he was having sex with his wife, and this is where he lost his finger, and he had his bad finger on his wife's hands. He started bleeding on her face. He didn't care, and he told the wife to be quiet. And of course, that's like that. That angers me so much, but I get it. It's one example.
It's one of the things with his villain. I don't know. It didn't bother me because, as I said, it had that fairy tale aspect where it's so clearly good versus evil. But there was no nuance to his character. There was no redeemable qualities.
But even though it was a fairy tale story, it wasn't set in a 100% fairy tale environment.
Yeah.
It was set in something in real life. So you could see someone actually doing that.
Exactly.
And that is relatable. The film, like I said, the film did a very good job of showing how much of a villain he is. Mm-hmm. And he did at one point. There was a line in the film where the monster was found near, like the ancient Aztecs worshipped this monster as a god.
Yeah.
And it's because it had healing powers.
Yep.
But what do you think of the other characters in this film? We talked about the villain.
I really enjoyed the lead actress. First off, she did the lead actress whose name escapes me at the moment. She did a fantastic job conveying all these different emotions without using words. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever tried to hold a conversation with someone without using words, but it is not easy.
No, well, it's like WALL-E. WALL-E, in that film, you had WALL-E and Eve only used one word, Eve and WALL-E. And yet the entire film, you had to go off of emotions and the eyes and just a facial expression. Same thing with this movie. It's like she was mute, and so she had to sit there and she had to use her fingers and she had to use sign language to convey her thoughts. And you could see everything on her face. Everything was emotionally on her face. So that's one thing I got. I mean, I could see everything that...
But yeah, that is a very odd comparison, comparing the human actress to WALL-E.
Well, I didn't... WALL-E in the sense of that the movie was able to convey all these emotions without words. And that's one of the things that makes that movie so beautiful. Mm. And that's the other movie I know of that does a good job of conveying emotions without using words. And then you compare what she did, it accomplished the exact same goal. She did everything with her face, with her body language, and you could see that. You could, feel that emotion from her. And yeah.
And I liked her character arc, going from someone who's just content with life. She has a okay life. She has a friend she watches movie with. She has a decent job. Mm-hmm. She just seems to be content to me. Whereas having the character arc, whereas meeting and falling in love with this monster and deciding to risk really everything, including her life, to save it, to rescue it. Because she wasn't intending to go back with it to Brazil or that area, the South Americas. She was intended to help it. So she always knew it was going to go away and things like that. So I thought that was interesting. I really liked her arc going from, hey, this is an outsider like me, so I don't need to leave it. I need to do everything I can to help it get where it belongs.
Yeah, well, for me, unfortunately, I didn't feel that sense of being an outsider with these characters. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was no doubt that these characters were just, I don't know about mutes, but I know that gays and blacks were definitely discriminated during that time. There's history tells us that.
Even if she wasn't discriminated against, she would feel like an outsider just by basis of not being able to communicate with everybody. Because she knew ASL, she knew sign language, but not everybody does. So that would limit the communication options. Even if she wasn't treated as an outsider, she would feel like an outsider.
I do understand that, but for me, it's like I just didn't get that sense from the movie, from her standpoint and from the monster standpoint. I didn't get that monster sense of being an outsider either.
Well, it worked for me because this monster's in an environment that isn't his. Mm-hmm. Like, who knows? There may have been other creatures like the monster. Yeah. In the South Americas, we don't know. There may have been this hidden civilization, so to speak. Yeah. But in our environment, this creature, by the very definition, is an outsider.
Yes, I get that. I just, for me, I don't know. I just didn't feel that.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, I guess some things just won't resonate with everybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like the Blade Runner films with me.
No, you just don't get them?
I just don't get them.
Okay. Well, I mean, the first Blade Runner, the second one I enjoyed a lot more. But getting back to the film, what did you think of the other side characters?
Well, I always enjoyed Richard Jenkins.
Yes, he was really good in this.
The older, he's been in a lot of things, and he always has a smaller role, and he's always kind of this just the supporting character off to the side. Yeah. But he always brings it, and I don't know. I just always like seeing him in films, and I thought he did a really good job conveying a man who's kind of wanting more, wanting that romantic aspect. He has a good friend in Eliza, but he wants the romantic companionship, like the movies they always watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, got to a point where he wanted a job back, and he seemed like he was really good at his job. And I'm like, well, why aren't they not wanting him back? I don't understand. I never got that, and it was never clear to me on that.
That wasn't clear either. I don't know if it was the way the company was changing, or if it was. I didn't get anything about that, because him being because he was gay. I'm honestly a little unsure on that one as well.
Yeah, for me, I think that's another thing that would have been nice. For me, that would have been nice to something to show me why I should. Again, it's like I don't understand their desires. It seems like they have good lives. Like we said, see, he seemed content, even though they both were looking for romantic stuff. It's not something that is needed to survive.
I understand, but people like romantic stuff.
No, I'm not saying that they don't. I'm not saying that it's not important, but you can, survive. And it seems like the two were in fact content with their lives. There was joy in it, and I didn't get that sense. I
actually disagree with you on Richard Jenkins, because we see the shot of his fridge, and we see there are like 30 pies in there, implying that this is something he's wanted for a while and been working up the courage, and been doing that. I don't know. His character arc actually did resonate with me, because here's this man who, frankly, has everything to lose. Like what I mean by that is, he doesn't have a job or anything, but he's risking his life for a creature he has no attachment to. Yeah. He's doing it to help his friend, and that's how good of a friend his character is. And I thought that was cool.
I'm not saying it wasn't cool and all. Like I said, for me, none of it really resonated. And the reason why I didn't, and matter of fact, during the entire movie, I was really wasn't really into the film. But when Richard Jenkins started being, his character arc started being more and more evil and more yelling and screaming.
Oh, you mean Michael Shannon?
The villain. Kept on making it get more evil. it just bothered me to an extent because there was nothing that was off balancing it. There was an emotional imbalance there. That I got more hate from the film and anger from the film, which was credit to the film in the sense of, the film made you hate the villain, made you get angry at the villain, and that's a good thing because you want to be angry at the villain. You want the villain to lose, and
that's fine that you didn't get it, but it definitely worked for me. It definitely had that balance for me. I see what you're talking about with Michael Shannon being just so evil, though. It worked for the movie. It worked for me.
Okay.
And the idea of the friends banding together to help out the creature, and then their immense friendship and the love she had for the creature, it definitely balanced out for me.
You know, it was good. I mean, is there anything else you liked about this?
The music choices.
Oh, yeah.
I loved the music. A lot of it was so simple and so melodic. It worked. It created a softness.
It reminded me of the music you hear kind of like from, I don't know what style of music is from, but I had flashbacks of movies like Ratatouille where you had that kind of that soft city glow sound. And then I'm trying to think of other movies. It's like Spirited Away type of thing where the movie sits in a specific shot and you just get to hear the music and enjoy the moment. I got that from the music.
And I also enjoyed the cinematography in the film. Like the fact that they took their time, they held shots. Because had the film cut too much, it would have kind of broken the illusion. The film did a lot of match cuts that worked really well in maintaining the illusion, taking you to this world.
Yeah, I mean, for those who are wondering what a match cut is, in editing, it's a shot where you go from one scene that has, for example, if you have, I think a perfect example is Hot Fuzz. There's a scene of a bed at night where Simon Pegg was sitting on, and then the next shot was the same bed but empty, thus signifying that time has passed and that he's already up. So it's the next morning he's going. And this film did that. It did that in the sense that one of the main characters who was driving the bus or a van was trying to get the monster out, and he looked at his watch, trying to synchronize to see when he has to go. And then the next shot was of a watch, but then the next shot was the Russian guy looking at it, or just got done looking at it. So it transitioned from the outside in the van to inside into the facility seamlessly.
And it's two different plots, the A plot and the B plot, because they're both in a hurry at that point. They both are very aware of the time passing.
So and now the audience seamlessly goes from one to the other. So it's not a jarring transition. So, and there's another cut. I was watching it, and it's also in editing. There's a rule where you only cut when you have to. So the scene where I forgot whether the two main characters, or the two characters, the mute and the gay guy, and the gay gentleman, was walking into the pie shop, and they just got out of the van, and you can see the shot on them, and then they were walking to the pie shop, and the camera was following them, but they were walking away from the camera, and the camera just settled into a far shot, and then they just walked in, and then you could hear what's known as a J cut or an L cut. Well, in editing, you have the sound is introduced during one of the shots, so you could have like me and you could be in a scene, and we're talking to one another, and we hear this car alarm, and the camera seeing us talk to one another, and then you hear the car alarm in the background, and then we both look to see what it was, and then the next shot is a car.
Yeah,
that's what's known as J and L cuts. It introduces the sound during one shot, and then if it eases, then the shot cuts into the next, so it eases the audience into the next shot. Batman vs Superman used a lot of these J's and L cuts.
Okay, cool.
So that's another rule when it comes to editing. So next time you watch this film or watch a film, notice for those things. A sound introduced in one scene to ease you into another. So that's there you go. A secret of editing.
This has been a film lesson with Joseph.
There you go. But what do you think of the other character, the other maid?
Octavia Spencer.
No, the maid.
Yeah, Octavia Spencer.
That was her name?
Yeah, that's the actress's name.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought the character's name.
I can't remember the character's names.
Okay, all right.
I can't remember her character
because
name.
There was two. There was that, and then there was a Russian one, and they had a subplot between the two.
Yeah.
And then with her character...
I mean, it worked. I did like the rapport she had with Eliza, and she seemed like she did not want to get involved at all.
Oh, she was a hero, but one of those heroes who was like, I don't want to be a hero. Yeah.
And then she ended up going along just because of her friend. She's another one of those actresses that is great in the side roles.
Yeah. Well, she's a very good actor too.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy.
I know she was in Hidden Figures, which I actually never got the chance to see.
Oh, okay. She's also in another one that was about NASA. I think it was a NASA.
That was Hidden Figures.
Oh, Hidden. Oh, he said Hidden Figures. Yeah. She was in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I enjoyed the character too, and also her character was also necessary to the plot because of the fact that she is black and she was one of those outsiders that in the 1950s and 60s, the massive discrimination that took place. So her character was also important because of that, because the main character, the Zod, General Zod. I'm too much of a superhero fan,
but it worked because they each could understand the plight of the creature of the merman.
All these characters were chosen to supplement one another very well. And the entire point was that if you see the creature as an outsider, that is supposed to be the creatures is supposed to be a representation of how these people feel and how the other feels, so that they play off one another. And that's another way. That's another way the storytelling.
And that's how we're supposed to understand that how them being willing to help.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's like, well, we are outsiders too. We need help one of our own. That's basically what it goes to. Now, but what do you think of the Russian one and the subplot? That one, because like that was added to the film.
I don't know. That one was weird to me.
Was it?
Yeah. Like I kind of get why it was there, but it was still weird to me.
Yeah,
because they had to create a region where the monster couldn't just stay there. They had to create a timeline. Like if they didn't do something, the monster would be killed and dissected.
Yeah.
So they had to do something.
It was at stake to the game.
Yeah, it did.
It was also to add a motivation for not only the heroes but the bad guys, for all of them, and just also set up the tone of the external forces outside. Everybody's trying to kill one another. Everybody is wanting power. Everybody wants this, and all that. The girl wanted and the monster wanted was just love.
Yep.
And that's pretty much, and that's the point. Everybody was involved in hate and anger and rage, and they just wanted love. And it's like, yay, happy and stuff. Like, okay. I mean, I get it.
That's funny. Like, you're more drawn to the violence. Like, yeah, violence. Boo, love.
I know how it sounded. I know how it sounds like, but it's more like I'm interested in conflict because you can learn a lot within the conflict, and you can learn resolution within the conflict.
So, boo, love.
Well, no, I mean you can find, but I think that love is something that needs to come from the broken pieces.
Okay.
It's like it's something that grows out of it. It's like it's the biggest lessons we learn a lot of times is in conflict, is in when we have dealt with a no-win situation, and that's where we really learn how to overcome and learn how to become, and to fight off and to persevere. That's where we learn our strengths and weaknesses. So I'm more drawn to those type of things than just simply having like, oh, well, they wanted this the entire time. Like, okay, yay, that's great. They are the perfect human beings, and we're not. So, oh, well, I guess I'll, follow them.
Damn, you sound bitter as hell.
This movie, I don't know. There's a lot of other things I don't know. This movie really did get me angry, and I'm still trying to figure out why. I'm still trying to dissect it.
Do you need your fish monster creature?
I don't want us to know. I don't need a fish monster creature.
You don't want to have the sex scene with a fish monster creature?
I'm not a big seafood guy.
Shut up, Collins.
But no, we talked about this movie a lot, didn't we?
We did.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else that comes to mind?
Not really, actually.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. So, yeah, but like I said...
Actually, what did you think about the ending? Like, what did you think about it?
To be honest, I didn't get to the ending. I got so angry with this movie that I cut off 15 minutes before.
Wow.
And I did not finish it, but I did see some of it on YouTube. And apparently, from what I saw from YouTube, as she showed me, was that they get shot by the bad guy. The bad guy says, "You really are God," and that was an important line because during the film, in the movie, he said, "Look, this creature isn't real. He's not made in the image of God. We're made in the image of God. Therefore, we're the only one who has intrinsic value." I'm like, okay, that's fine, but that doesn't give you permission to be, it clearly says, love one another and love your enemies. It's like you're not exactly following. I don't think you know what the Bible actually says if you take this mentality.
He's kind of cherry picking though.
He is cherry picking, like a lot of people do, and that kind of gets me upset when anybody does it. But it's a very important line. But I do disagree. The monster isn't a god. That's not what God is. And Hercules wasn't technically a god. It's more like a demigod, like a superhero. There's a difference between the two, but that's a whole different debate for different time.
But I don't know Aztec mythology. This could have been a god.
Well, in Aztec, yeah. I mean, to them, but I do think there's a... I don't know. That's a different debate for a different time. But getting back to your question, yeah, it seems like you told me there's a lot of theories.
There are some theories about the ending. And I always like that, because the ending did have some ambiguity. Because anytime a movie kind of wraps itself cleanly up like that... I wonder if that is just the character's interpretation of what actually happened. Because, like, while all that's going down, while everybody's getting shot and Michael Shannon's getting killed, Richard Jenkins is also there. He's just kind of on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So he does see Eliza go into the water with the merman. But he doesn't know what happens afterwards. So I believe that's kind of his interpretation of what happened.
Yeah, because at the end, they both get shot. And the monster heals herself and then brings what's her name? Eliza into the water and then heals her, gives her gills. Because at the beginning of the film, she has cuts on her neck that is in the shape of gills. And I noticed that when I saw the film, it's like, oh, those scratches seem to be very strategically chosen. It's like, it's subconsciously. I'm like, something's up here. And we find out that they open up to be gills, or that the monster turns them into gills. And so now she can live underwater with her love and all this good stuff. I'm like, that's nice. That's good. That's awesome. That's romantic.
Nice. It is nice and romantic and the happy fairy tale ending. Then they lived happily ever after.
Well, that we know of. I mean, Grease had a happy fairy tale ending, but we had a very dark theory about that.
Yeah.
Do you hear about? Yeah.
I know all about that one.
Yeah. So. Who knows? I mean, wasn't one of the theories that she died or something?
Well, that's kind of actually what I think. Like, that's just because of the...
It was like so happy and so pleasant that it has to be a fairy tale ending?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so much for love and romanticness on your end, too. I'm just kidding. Well, anyway, but again... This film, like I said, once again, I thought this film was really well made. I thought it was really well crafted. Just not for me, but you enjoyed it. You loved it.
I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. I did.
But, unfortunately, we have to go. However, tell the audience what's on store for them next week.
I'm so excited.
Okay.
There's two of my favorite things are coming in together in a movie.
Oh.
Wes Anderson and dogs.
Okay. What does it have to do with one another, Paul?
Well, I love Wes Anderson movie, and I love dogs.
Okay, and what does Wes and dogs have to do with one another?
I love dogs.
Oh, the new movie coming out, I love dogs. Yeah, no, that looks really good. I'm always anytime that I see an animated film like that, I'm always drawn to it, whether it's an anime or whether it is an American anime or American animation.
And I love stop motion animation.
Yes, I do agree. Stop motion is, again, a lot of work and effort can go into that as well. So, but that's on store for you guys next week. But until then, I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Coombs.
And you've been listening to the CNC Geekcast.